So, had I had my slides up, the first slide would look like this.
That's wonderful. You
They were great slides.
No, I haven't.
And I was told the system worked, but I should have been listening.
So all the youth have it, now the other youth see it.
Oh, wow.
So, we started this summer series out, and we're in lesson 8. And so, I wasn't here for the first couple of, okay, for the first 6 lessons. I was here last week for Cody's lesson. Does anybody remember what the first lesson was by any chance? Does anybody remember what the first sentence was like? Yeah? You remember?
Can you grow spiritually without the Spirit or something like that?
Okay, well,
We
it's the
talked
first
about
one.
that.
When does spiritual growth begin?
Okay.
Right? And so, does anybody remember that lesson? When does spiritual growth begin?
Yes.
All right?
Because there were people that were divided, I remember.
What's that? I think did Tony Halsey teach that class?
Yeah.
Or you did? Tony Black. Okay, so Tony, what do you remember that class?
It was very engaging.
It was very engaging. When does spiritual growth begin?
I think you're going to have to define whether we're spiritual.
Okay. Wow, I got
Some
some.
with the Spirit.
I got some roguelikes and looks.
Well, the age of knowing of a child, if that child reaches that supposed age and is baptized, would that start spiritual building or spiritual knowledge?
So, Larry, basically, if I can rephrase your answer, is that when a child comes of age, that's when spiritual growth begins. Age of accountability. We often use that. When does spiritual growth begin?
Hearing the word of God.
When you hear the word of God? Is it before you accept Him and are baptized? Is it?
I think Mark,
Yes.
I think that depends upon the person and the family they're in.
It depends on the
You can
family.
drag the child to church all you want to, and if they're not peace and have peace of heart, and understand that this is for kindness, they're going to resent the whole trip.
Well, I think we should go back to class 1.
Because I really think that from the very first time that they heard, just like a little child, when you sing the song Jesus Loves Me, they are cognizant of something besides themselves. And so I really think that from the moment you hear the word, the second you hear the word, that you have begun a spiritual growth, whether you were cognizant of it or not. Because a little child wouldn't necessarily be cognizant, but if that instilled something in them right now for later on, yeah, I remember when I was little, I used to sing that song.
Okay. So how many grew up in the church? Okay. How many had?
Amen.
Yeah. Well, what's the church? How many grew up in the church? Right. How many took on your mother and father's faith? Right. When were you confronted about that faith? Most likely. When you left home? Okay.
13.
13? Young kid? Okay. Because most of the time when I go back to, and I'll get to you in just a second, okay? When we go back to singing songs, there are things we do because we do it to what? Go along and fit in, okay? Or someone told us to do it. So you may have been in a class and the teacher says, we're all going to sing Jesus Loves Me, right? And everybody sings what? Jesus loves me, this I know, right? And so the teacher tells you to do that, right? What is the growth?
I think just to be in hearing that word Jesus, and that there's someone besides mom and dad or grandparents or whatever that loves you.
Okay. So the other question would be, if you take Saul, who became Paul, when did his spiritual growth begin?
When he was born.
What's that?
When he was born.
When he was born, his spiritual growth?
Or on the road to Damascus.
But he was
On
already
the road to
spiritual. He was
What's that?
already spiritual.
He was always
He
spiritual.
just didn't know it wasn't Jesus.
Directed the right way.
He was spiritual for something
Well, the Holy
else.
Spirit can convict him through that conviction.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I
So-
think that's where the problem.
So, what's that?
I said, I think that's where
The
the
rub.
rub was the first times. I remember some people defined spiritual as different things. Some people said, you can only spiritually grow once the Holy Spirit has indwelt in you. And then other of us have had a more fluid growth that we have felt the Lord pulling us towards Him long before we were baptized and saved. So I think for some of us, we felt we were growing in the Word and growing in Christ before the Holy Spirit ascended on us. Yeah, does that make sense?
No, that makes sense because, I mean, we grew up,
Okay.
we grew up in a Christian home, right? And so the thing as we were growing up, you know, that was the essence of who I was, right? And I thought it was okay until I was convicted to do what? Be baptized, right? The thing is that I knew what I needed to be doing. And maybe there's some part that, you know, part of that was rebellious because I wasn't, you know, I either felt I wasn't ready or I was not truly fully convicted that I needed to do it, right? Commit my life. And so, spiritual growth, and so you had your hand up. Did you want to say something?
No, I spent a whole hour last time saying.
Oh, so we don't want to spend a whole hour this time going over the same thing. But the reason I pause on that one is because Cody, Tony, and I just had a few moments Monday night, and when we talked about it, it depends what you talk, you know, where is the beginning, right, of that. And so true spiritual growth begins when? Huh?
I think it depends on the person again.
Depends on the person.
I think
Okay.
it does, because some of us have a, like Adrian said, we have a more spirituality than some others. You can grow up in the same household and have more spirituality than the person that's sleeping in the bed with you.
So let me ask you a question. Are you made in the image of God?
Yes,
Aiden, are you made in the image of God?
yes, sir, I am.
Dinah, are you made in the image of God? Kale?
Yes.
Absolutely. So we're made in the image of God. We have God formed us in His likeness. So from the essence of His forming Him like us, do we not have a spiritual essence about us? Okay? But when does that kick in? And so, I'll use this example.
So,
When we were, oh,
so you asked us in here if we're formed in the image of God, and we all said yes. It also includes everybody that's outside this room.
amen. Amen. So Bob out there,
Yeah.
made me, amen. That's why I didn't ask just certain people, but I did ask just certain people right there. And so, but I can't ask Bob because Bob's not attentive right now. And so the thing is that when, 1 second, Captain. So when we were growing up, unlike today's generation, we played outside. Oh, that's right. I forgot to do it. Okay. We played outside, and the thing is, you know, we would play stuff like army, right? Wanted to be a soldier, you know, wanted to fight. Was I a soldier then?
No,
No. Did I want to be?
maybe. I don't know.
When did I become a soldier?
Might have been.
When did I become a soldier?
When you said I do.
Yeah, when I said I do. I said I do twice, and I haven't regretted either one of those, okay? But yeah, when I became 18 years old, right? And so the thing is that when did it mean something to me?
You raise your right hand.
When I raised my right hand and committed to it, right? That is when I began a life of a soldier. That's when I grew as being a soldier. Same thing I would impress upon you, the same thing with our spirituality, okay? To some degree, it really doesn't make any sense to us until we do what? Until we commit, right? I mean, Cindy and I dated for 7 years. Were we married when we were dating? No. We were not considered a married couple. We were a couple, but we were not a married couple. Now, we did marry 7 years later, okay, when I committed, right? And so the thing is that as we walk through this, spirituality, there's a lot of folks out of these four walls that believe that there is a God. They have some faith. But what they have not done is what? Commit. We have some within this room this evening, right? That sing the songs, and memorize the verses, read the Bible, pray. But then the question is that who are they? They're still a lost child, right? Okay. So the reason I paused on that, okay, oh, Catherine,
Don't forget me.
I won't because you won't let me forget
I
you.
won't, because I really want to say this.
Okay,
I think in my opinion, we're looking at this too narrowly. We're looking at spirituality as us going towards God. I think our life with God coming towards us began first. And because of that, we are spiritual beings as we are made in His image and likeness. And He knew us before He formed us. He knew all of our days before we were born. So I think we're looking at it too narrow-mindedly. Spirituality is a two-way street. And I think we're not looking at Him, looking at us.
But we're talking about spiritual growth.
Spiritual growth,
that's
absolutely.
first growth. Yeah, and so
Absolutely.
if I can expand upon that a minute, it's not Him coming to us because He's already done that.
Yeah,
Right.
He's done it. So that fully approves or fully agrees with
So
what I just
when-
said.
Well, no, why don't say it? So when He created me, right? He knew me from the very beginning. Did I, or do I still have an option? I haven't passed
Free
it.
choice.
Sure,
So,
you do.
I have
But
free
it
choice.
doesn't negate His stance
No,
towards
it never
you.
has, and neither for Bob out there,
No.
right? Okay? And so the thing is that when we talk about, we're going to get into spiritual growth, Romans 6, through chapter 8 here in just a moment, that talks about that. The thing is until Catherine commits, God says, I have done all I can for you.
No, God never did that.
God says, I have done all I can for
Okay,
you.
I'll share.
Right? No, I'm just saying. Just follow me a second. I have done all I can for you. To a point, right? Now, whose option is it whether or not that relationship is formed? Right. So I'll go back to an example. Cindy and I dated for 7 years, okay? When I asked her to marry me, and it was kind of an odd request, because of the way we did it. So I was in Europe, and I put a ring in a pouch, in a tin can, in a box, and I sent it from Europe to here. Oh, yes, I did. As a matter of fact, I'm going to ask for forgiveness because there's one thing I didn't do, and I've regretted all my life. And that was ask my father-in-law's permission to take his daughter's hand.
You too.
But I figured we had dated for 7 years, so he knew it was coming. So the box was sent to my mom. Matter of fact, it was here in this main building on a Wednesday night. That my mom, was it Wednesday night? I think it was Wednesday night. My mom hands the box to Cindy, and because she would bake me cookies and send them over in a tin can. I'd return the tin can. This is when we used mail. And so she hands Cindy the can. She opens the box. She opens the box. Can's in there. She hears something in it. She opens the can. It's this little leather pouch from Spain. Ooh. Magical. And inside that pouch was a ring. And so she was going like, do you know what this is? Do you know what this is? She could have also said, ain't no way. Right? She had that option. But she did not choose that option. Now she regrets it because it's been that long. But the thing is that, I was ready. I was prepared. I was hoping she was too. Same thing for God. He has planned this from the very beginning. And He's going, I want you. I want you. I want you. And I have done everything to prepare you.
But if Cindy would have said no, would you have stopped, or would you still pursued her?
Don't know, because that was.
So what do you think?
We have to remember, God puts opportunities from the time we're born up to the time we do accept the gospel and to get that. But God puts things, in our. He gives us opportunities, is what I'm saying.
Right.
From different people, different ways.
That's right.
And that's how I found the Lord.
Amen. And so we just had Cindy's grandmother, Violet White, passed away a couple of weeks ago. We had her celebration. How long was your grandmother and grandfather married before you came to Christ?
He was
Like 65?
71 or something.
They were married like over 50 years before he came to Christ. But in that whole journey, she kept doing what? Growing spiritually, raising her children, in spite of her husband. Because there were times that he made it absolutely difficult for her to be a Christian. But she pursued God and knew that God would change his heart eventually, right?
With her help.
With her help. We don't know how we impact folks' lives, right? So anyway, moving on.
My first answer was when you hear the word God, you also look in Romans 1, it says, when you look at God's creation, there's God, and that's spiritual growth right there in itself.
Amen. Amen. What was the comment that you had, Aiden? Or did we already pass that? What was We're going to get there. So we covered how does God help me grow spiritually? What must I do to grow spiritually? How does the Bible help me grow spiritually? How do other believers help me grow spiritually? How do time and trials help me grow spiritually? And how does faith affect my spiritual growth? And then tonight, we're going to talk about how does entrenched sin hinder my spiritual growth. Okay? And so that is what we're going to cover tonight. Last week when we covered how does faith affect my spiritual growth, I couldn't help but think, does anybody watch the Geico commercials that they have? I mean, Geico? Which thousand? What? So there's these two guys at the gym and they're both lifting weight, right? And so they pan the one guy and he's lifting the weight and pan the other guy and he's about the same size. Pans back over to the other guy, and they're talking back and forth, and they pan back over, and the other guy's starting to bulk up, and so every time they pan back to him, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Isn't that what's supposed to be happening with our faith and our spiritual growth? Is that every time they pan back to us, we should be growing. Right? And so that's what kept going through my mind last week, so sorry for sharing that with you, because it probably doesn't bring up good memories. One of the things that I had asked Nathan to do this evening, does anybody know what this is?
Shovel.
E-tool.
It is a shovel, but what do we call it in the military? Entrenching tool, okay?
Until the names too.
Yeah.
You know what those are.
Yeah. And so this is an entrenching tool. And this is issued to every soldier. That's why I wanted to be in the Army, right? Because every soldier does that. But this is issued to every soldier. And so, especially in World War I, trenches were a main part of the battle. And so the armies would dig in. The reason they dug in is because it would protect them from enemy fire. It would protect them from enemy artillery, okay? And with this tool here, I mean, this is to dig a trench for a quick, hasty, foxhole, right? Of course, with the trenches that they had in World War I, in the picture I would have showed you, which was great, shows, I mean, massive trenches, to the point that they were able to, put their food and ammo, and they had the trenches connected, and they would along the battle lines, okay? The point I wanted to drive home with this is that our sin that we hang on to in our life, what we've done is we've taken a shovel and we have dug in. What do I mean by that? There are some things that you battle with today that you are not going to give up. There are things when you were being raised. How many have caught yourself saying, I am just like my father, or I'm just like my mother? Have you ever said that? There are things I have, there are things that I have done, I said, that's just like my dad. And then I shudder, right?
My dad was chief of police, I really didn't want to go there.
You didn't want to go there? And so there are things that either when we were raised, have become a part of our life, or there are things that we have learned throughout our life that have become a part of who we are. And some of those things are sinful. And what we've done is that in order for us to continue in that lifestyle, we have dug in. And so the trench wars in World War I, they couldn't get past the battle line and the opposing force because the force that they were fighting was entrenched. So what they would do then is on the other side of the battlefield is entrench themselves. And so you had this stalemate. Because all that was happening is that they would shoot at each other, but nothing would really happen, right? But each were holding their ground because they didn't want to give up what they had. And so what we're going to talk about tonight is that in us, there is sin and there is God. So which one wins? Well, we hope, right? But whose decision is it? Ours. Yeah.
Are you planning to disarm the blanks?
Yes. Yeah. So we'll get to the blank share in just a second. Okay. All right. Oh, I just want the minutes. Just want the minutes. When we talk about sin and we talk about spiritual growth, the thing that hinders us from growing is going to be sin. And sin will take you farther than you want to go. It will keep you longer than you want to stay. And it will cost you more than you want to pay. And so that is some of your blanks, right? For those of you that are coloring around the other side. Sin will take you farther than you want to go. Keep you longer than you want to stay. And cost you more than you want to pay.
Wait, what's the first?
Huh?
What was the first answer? The trench warfare is a type of blank blank.
Trench warfare if you missed the first one. Okay. You missed
It
it.
was the trench warfare.
I was listening anything to do with it.
Okay.
What you're saying, that's the problem.
Trench warfare. Oh, trench warfare equals what? Oh,
No, it's a typo.
oh, is it typo? Oh,
Is it type of?
oh, type up. Oh, what?
Big lines.
Land warfare.
Man, strange you look at their mark.
Trench warfare is,
Land warfare. Longer.
trench warfare equals, trench warfare equals what?
What's that?
Trench warfare equals what?
Trench warfare. Oh, I didn't cover that one? Hang on a second, and I have my slides up. Trench warfare, the defender is trying to hold the advantage. So, yeah, defense. Okay. So, sin opposes God's law and His creation. Sin hates rather than loves. Sin doubts or contradicts rather than trusts and affirms. Sin harms and abuses rather than helps and respects. Sin is a parasite of the good. And sin abuses, perverts, spoils, and destroys. So when we talk about sin, is sin a healthy thing?
No.
What does it do to us as a Christian? It can destroy us. What's that? Keeps us away from what our final goal should be. You can tear us apart, because what's interesting about tearing us apart, if we're trying to live a godly life and we are involved in sin, what is happening to your mind and heart? It's conflicted.
You're not 100%.
Romans 7. Yeah, Romans 6, 7, and 8. When we talk about, because we're going to cover Romans 6 here in parts of 7 and 8.
Separation from God, sin.
Right. Well, for the Christian, you know, someone says, why do Christians look so unhappy? Right? And some of it's because they're still dealing with sin. And they're torn. Right? And there's a battle raging within them. So no wonder you can't have any peace. Because if you're wanting to do good and you keep doing what is wrong, you know the difference. On our trip to Canada and back, Cindy and I were listening to some audio books, and it talks about this Christian who was a treasurer for some corporation or organization, and he was embezzling funds. And it was tearing him apart. But he needed the money so bad that he kept doing it, because he had a gambling problem. So he has more than one issue going on. But in order to feed the other issue, he had to take. But he also professed himself as a Christian. And so the company started an investigation and found out he was embezzling. He got in his car, took a weapon with him, and went out to a lake to end his life. But he couldn't pull the trigger. Because on the spiritual side, he knew what he had done was wrong. He needed to ask for forgiveness. And so he couldn't end his life just trying to get out of it easily. So he had left a note to his wife and said, hey, this is what I've done, and I'm going to end my life, and this is where I'm going to do it. And so his wife found the note, the police went out there, arrested him. When they arrested him, the comment he said is, now I feel free. Why? Because of the sin he had done now was exposed. And now that was lifted off of his shoulder. So the thing is that as we battle with sin in our life, there are things that we grew up with. We may have learned it from our parents, aunts, uncles, cousins, third or fourth removed. It may have been something that we learned in one of our occupations. It may have been something that we have learned over our lifespan. But it's still tearing us apart. And it's so bad because it is entrenched into who we are. To the point that rooting it out takes a lot of effort. So, sin, three factors about sin. Sin permeates the whole person. It corrupts. And in Romans 8, 5-8, those who live according to the flesh have their mind set on the flesh's desires.
Wait, what's sin? What's 3 again? Yes.
Sin permeates the whole person. It corrupts. Permeates. Okay, here we go. The mind governed by the flesh is death. The mind governed by the flesh is hostile to God. It does not submit to God's law, nor can it do so. Those who are in the realm of flesh cannot please God. So, second, sin resides in the heart of God's creation. Sin. When sin resides in the hearts of God's creation, it burdens and troubles the image of God. So we talked about that just a second ago. We are made in God's image. You know, folks said, well, you know, I am not spiritual. You know, I don't believe in all of that. But if we're made in God's image, what does that incorporate? Have you ever thought about that? What does that incorporate if we're made in His image? And when you mean everything what?
Every breath you take, every action that you take.
Do you think God laughs?
Yeah.
He's got to have a sense of humor.
Amen.
Do you believe that God weeps? Do you believe that God loves? And as we roll through all these, we are made in His image, and one of the things that also that is innate in us is to worship. We're going to worship something. You know, you go to any civilization, they worshipped something. Because that is what is instilled in us, is to worship. The thing is that if we do not find God as the source to worship, you know, they talk about idol images, wooden, stone, clay, bronze, all the Greek mythology. What did they have as gods? Sun, water, all kinds of stuff, right? And so the thing is that we as people are going to worship something. And so when sin resides in the heart, it burdens and troubles the image of God, which is us. Matthew 15:19, for out of the heart comes evil thoughts, murder, adultery, sexual immorality, theft, false testimony, slander, and the list goes on. Out of the heart. Is that God's intent? Is for us to pursue and do these things?
No.
That is not the essence of who God is, right? So when we talk about the essence of God and we talk about love, hope, weeping, crying, love, you know, did God build us to have a desire to murder someone.
Not desire, I think we had that free will.
We have that free will.
And that choice.
Absolutely, that we have that choice.
But I don't think we-
How many as parents wanted to screen their kids up? Screen them up. You know, when they were- oh, and the daughter is pointing to the dead, yeah. I've heard that before. Okay? The thing is that there are things we wanted to do, but what kept us from doing them? You got it.
Pray a lot.
Pray? Yeah?
Yeah.
Jail?
Being forced to ride with your dad on the sewer.
We look back when we were kids and say, please, I wonder if my dad and mom want to screen me out.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And the thing is as Christian parents, we know better than to do what? Cause harm, major harm to our children, right? I mean,
But it's getting close.
but it's getting close. Don't test me, right?
Don't make me come back.
Number 3, when unchecked, or when left unchecked, sin becomes proud, it resists God, it offers a counterfeit salvation. You go, hang on a second, what do you mean a counterfeit salvation? What kind of salvation does sin offer you?
That's salvation.
Huh?
And a false feeling of what is really going on in your life that you think you're okay. Like on one hand, you're saying that you're worshiping God, and on the other hand, you're doing things that you shouldn't be doing. So you've got this false sense of security saying, oh, it's okay, I'm justifying it by doing this, or by doing that. Make sense?
Makes a lot of sense, right?
We look into it like, what?
Yeah, well, no, the thing is, what I find interesting is that, and I'll go back to your children, or maybe even you, when you are caught doing something wrong, and this is usually not when you know when your children are lying, the stories get a lot longer, right? Because you're trying to justify and confuse the situation, right?
It becomes almost pathological. It's guarded.
Well,
What's really
and what's the problem with lying?
sin.
Okay, it's a sin, but you got to remember everything you said, and then you got to tell another lie to cover up that lie, and then you got to lie to cover up that lie, and then you got to lie to cover up that lie.
And you lose touch with who you are, and you lose the honesty and the rawness of a relationship with somebody else, because they don't know who you really are, and you forget who you really are, and so you start to fade, because you're not in the moment of who the Lord has created you to be.
Okay. Yeah. The thing is, what ends up happening in that aspect of losing who you are. I was trying to use an example.
Well, first when you lie, you're actually sinning against two people, yourself and God. Which is worse?
Well, God.
That's what my mother always says, all which is worse. And I go,
Have you ever known someone that worked harder trying to get out of work than it was just to do the work?
oh, yeah. Right on the job.
Right? They would actually go about doing something else to keep from doing the work that they were supposed to be doing. And then you look at them and you go like, if you would just do the work, right, you would be done. And then you wouldn't have to worry about, trying to cover up doing other things. And for me, lying is almost like that, right? Is that it takes more work to lie than it is to tell the truth. And the thing is that which one hurts more at the end of that session? Telling a lie or telling the truth? Even if the truth is hard.
The truth hurts, because you feel so miserable about just not coming right out to start with.
And doing that,
The truth may hurt, but it's the truth.
It's short-lived.
It's right. A lie continues to hurt, continues to hurt, continues to hurt, continues to hurt, right? Because, kind of like what we're talking about, we got to tell a lie, to tell a lie, to tell a lie. So you told a group of people, well, I did this you know, and then someone else comes in, well, you know, I didn't see you there. Oh, yeah, well, I was over, you know, doing this other thing. And someone else comes up and says, you know what about this thing? And you go, well, you know, really, I don't know. And so you tell these people these different stories. Right?
And the guy that you went to place with, stood in front door, was like, that place is great doing this.
Okay. So, long story short, well, you probably shouldn't have been. Okay. Okay. So, when left unchecked, sin becomes proud, it resists God, and offers a counterfeit salvation instead. Acts chapter 4 and 12, salvation is found in no one else but whom? God, right? No one else can save you. Sin keeps you from Him and keeps you from growing spiritually. So Isaiah 59:2. But your iniquities have made a separation between you and God. Your iniquities. What is iniquity? Sin, right? And your sins, and it goes on to have hidden from His face so that He does not hear. And so Isaiah 59 says, if you sin, what does God do? Or what happens to that relationship between you and God?
Separates you from God.
Separates you from God. To the point that He won't even acknowledge. Right? Isaiah 59:2. Micah 3:4. Then they will cry to the Lord, but He will not answer them. He will hide His face from them at that time, because they have made their deeds evil. And as we take a look at sin, is that, like a lie, is that the more we do it, sometimes the more comfortable we become doing it.
Your consciousness becomes steered towards sin. Now, I've got the word, there's no more hope for you.
Wow.
God is.
Eventually that's what happens, because we'll get to another verse here in just a minute. So the thing is that, is there something that you're doing in your life that you know that is not right, but you keep doing? And if you keep doing it and you feel guilty about doing it, what should you do about it?
Quit.
Quit. Change.
You never repented,
Okay?
whatever that sin happened.
Okay. Do we go back to doing what we feel comfortable doing? It's human nature. Sometimes when something happens in our life, what we'll do is revert back to what we are comfortable with. Right? And so it's a constant fight. Because where you want it to be treated. Do you have a home in your house? I mean, do you have a home in your house?
Yes.
I have a room in my home.
Do you have a room in your home that you retreat to?
Yes.
Yes.
Wherever they're at,
Oh, wherever they're at, you are not there, right? Okay, it's just a joke, okay. Larry, it's just a joke. We won't tell the wife. But the thing is that, do you find yourself going to that room when you just want to get away? Or you just want to be left alone, or you just want to be comfortable? Is there a room that you retreat to? Or is there some place that you retreat? It may be the park, it may be a lake, it may be a river, or maybe, right? What's that? Maybe school? You retreat to school?
I love
But the thing is that why do you retreat to that location? Huh?
peace, nothing to read God.
Okay, it could be a positive thing like that, right? Did anybody have any problems with drinking? Okay. Did you retreat to drinking when things would go wrong?
Yeah, but I was,
Yeah, when you're an
I
alcoholic,
stopped drinking, so.
right? And so when something would happen during the day, you would go, I'm fed up with this. And then where would you go for comfort? To Dad, right? Where? Okay, this is not cheers, okay? The thing is what's interesting in our life is we retreat to things that we feel comfortable with, although it may be wrong. Where does God call us to retreat to? Him. For the ultimate comfort, the ultimate love, one who can, help us through our sorrow and grief, right? He says, retreat to me, not to Cheers, not to the lake. Now, you may do that and still go to the Scripture, but the thing is that He is calling you home. He is calling you to come to Him, right?
Doesn't He say He longs to gather you?
He longs. Yes, He does. Psalms 11:5, the Lord examines the righteous, but the wicked, those who love violence, He hates with a passion. 11:5. Hebrews 10:26. If we deliberately keep on sinning after we have received the knowledge of truth, no sacrifice for sin is left.
That's the same context as we're saying, that is something the same.
It is the verse before. Yeah, 10:25, right, in the same
Instead
context.
of building up, so if you're in the first thing of the saints.
But it goes on to say in 26, if we deliberately keep on sinning. If we deliberately keep on sinning, what does that mean? If we keep doing it over and over? But it's more than that.
We're cognizant that it is wrong, and we continue to do it.
Yes. What does deliberate mean? It's more than just doing it on.
And you know that you are rejecting God, you're rejecting the body.
No, but what does deliberate mean?
It's conscious effort.
A conscious effort. Is it planned?
Yes. Sometimes, yeah.
Sometimes
If I do something deliberately, so I'm going to put my head on Aiden's head. Is that deliberate? All right. Why? Because I said I was going to do it, and then, oh, sorry to do your hair. Deliberate takes a conscious effort to do, right? And so if we deliberately keep on sinning, after we have received the knowledge of the truth, no sacrifice for sins is left. That's pretty raw. And is a warning. For those of us that keep on doing what we know we should not be doing. Right? Romans 1:24. Therefore, God gave them over to the sinful desires for their hearts, to sexual impurity, or the degrading of their bodies with one another. And so, this is talking about a specific sin, but at the same time, we see God doing what? Romans 1:24. We see God doing what? Gave them up. So we go back before. God is ready for us. He is waiting. He is wanting us to come to Him. Who leaves?
We do.
We do. I mean, He may turn a deaf ear, right?
So
But who
that's
thinks?
kind of what that's saying then, is he's kind of just turn a deaf ear to them and let them.
Romans 1:24. What does it say to you?
That is what it says. Therefore, God gave them over to the sinful desires of their hearts, the sexual impurity, the degrading of their bodies with one another.
So can we grieve God to the point that he just says,
But as we intended here, we wait for it to come. Because it's our choice.
But not if we keep doing it.
That's correct.
the thing is that,
It's like gambling with it. Why would you want to gamble, you know, and lose? Why would you want to put Russian roulette with, you know, God's word and what he's promised? He says he would give it over to you. I would think if my kids came to me and said, I don't have to do the dishes, I don't have to do the dishes, I don't have to do the dishes, and every single time I'm climbing up, it would be disrespectful. I would think that would be disrespect, right? Because they know what they're supposed to do and they're not being obedient. Why would you want to continue to thumb your nose at such an authority figure, you know, as the Lord? It's like gambling with everything. It's testing him, I think. Gambling is probably not the right word. It's testing him.
and if I was to use an example, so the prodigal son, right? The prodigal son's like, hey, Dad, I'm of age, I know what is going on. I want my inheritance now, right? And I'm sure, and we don't know, I'm just speculating, the father's going, do you really know what you're asking? Do you really know what you want? I mean, I think we've had children there, you know, saying, I know it. You know, and that's when you tell them, go out and get a job, buy a home, while you know it, right? And I'm sure the father pleaded with that son. But at the same time, what did the father end up doing?
Rejoicing in his son.
Well, but first, before he did that, he turned it all over to him, right? Almost like Romans 1:24. I can't do anything with you anymore. You have decided to take this path. So I'm turning you over to your own desires.